Morning, everybody, and welcome to Chassidus in the morning. 15 minutes to change our lives. Learning L'kutei Sichos Chalak Aleph again. Parshas Vayera. Well, a beautiful sichot this week, and essentially, there's two ideas we want to learn. One idea is that we should connect with Hashem. We should have an emotion. We should have an emotional connection to Hashem. We should feel it, not just, And a simple way of understanding this is think about something that makes us very emotional. It could be lahavdil, let's say a person wants to move read a book. God, that's very emotional. Or an emotional time period in our life. We should be able to have that same feeling, and when we connect, when we think about Hashem, when we connect with Hashem, when we daven, when we learn. That's the first point, and we're going to learn. And the second thing we're going to learn is we have to learn that we got to work, and life is about working on ourselves. And the more we work on ourselves, the better it is, and the more connected we are. And working is an important aspect of life, as we'll see in the Sechah. This is a very famous story, and it's a very geshmak Sechah, and hopefully we'll enjoy it. And the purpose of learning these Sechahs specifically is they're very fundamental, and this is what the Rebbe's sort of practical, as Shiur said, this is the practical Chassidus. So we get to learn these things and see how the Rebbe sees things. And ultimately we want to be able to come to these types of ideas ourselves. When we learn something, we should think in this way. And you'll see as we learn and as we go through the weeks, that's how we should start looking. And suddenly when we learn something like a Rashi or a Vayera Torah, we start to think of questions the way the Rebbe would think of questions. And that's what we're trying to achieve. Okay, Parshas Vayera. As a sipur haba, this story that we're going to say, the Rebbe is saying it's like a forbearing. I'm saying this story that I'm going to tell you, I've already said it a few times. Being that today, when the Rebbe said the forbearing, it's Chaf Mar Cheshvan, which is Yom Hodas Shel Rabbi. It's Chag Krei Kedushas Admar Rashab. It's the Rebbe Rashab's birthday. Nishmas Eden. Avi Krei Kedushas Mer Chami Admar, which is the father of the Frierdiker Rebbe. So I'm going to tell the story again. So everything I've said the story a few times. I'm going to repeat it because it's a good story and there's a lot to learn from this. Let's see. Rabbi Rashab Eden Nohagli Kanis Midei Shana. B'Yom Hodasai El Sabay Krei Kedushas Admar Tzemach Tzedek Almanas Levakish Birchasei. So the Rebbe Rashab would go every year to his grandfather, Tzemach Tzedek, for his birthday to get a birthday bracha. And she said, and you can seemingly all the other grandchildren, there was a lot, meaning because the Tzemach had seven children, and they all had grandchildren, they all had children. So all those children did the same thing. So that's what happened. They all went by their birthdays. Seemingly, that's what I was saying. So one year, the Rebbe Rashab enters to the Chiddush room of the Tzemach Tzedek. He was about 4 or 5 years old at the time, and Rebbe explains why do we say that? Because who Neilad B'Shnas Tafresh Chaf Aleph. He was born in 1860. The Elu B'Nissen Tafresh Chaf Vav, and by Nissen in 1966. So that's already 6 years later. The Tzemach Tzedek already had passed away. Prior to Bechim. And the Tzemach Tzedek, he started crying. No. So he came into the Tzemach Tzedek's room and he started crying. And his grandfather, Tzemach Tzedek, asked the Rebbe Rashab, why are you crying? Give me 1 second. So the Rebbe Rashab comes into the room of Tzemach Tzedek and he starts crying. So Tzemach Tzedek says, why are you crying? Say Shiv, Hayeled, the Rebbe Rashab explains, Ki lama ad chumash, he learned chumash, oy, shama, the Sabbath heard him say, we don't know how old he was actually learning or he heard the story. But what did he hear? That Hashem showed himself to Avraham Avinu. Hakriya Haisa is Parshas Vayera, this is Parsha. And he was crying that Hashem didn't show himself to him. He's in there, he's crying. Why doesn't Hashem show himself to Avram? So why does he show himself to me? So what does the Tzemach Tzedek answer him? That's not Tzedek answered. Shiur, he said, when a Jew, or the different version is when a Jew, a tzaddik, and the Rebbe is saying this because he's going to analyze this a little bit. Bein Tishim and Tesha Shanim, he's already 99 years old. Machlit, and he decides to give himself a bris, and of course it doesn't mean just the physical bris, but the representation of the bris. So he is fitting that Hashem should show it to him. So the Rebbe Ashab, he says, I'm crying, he wants to see Hashem. He says, why don't I get to see Hashem? And Tzemach Tzedek answers, he goes, because Abraham was a year of 99 years old, and he walked in himself, and when a person 99 years old chooses to have a bris, so then he deserves Hashem should show himself to him. And the Rebbe Ashab liked it. He was mekubal, he received it, he took it. And he stopped crying. Yeah, so just to repeat the story in short, that the Rebbe Ashab came on his birthday to himself Tzedek, and he comes into his room to get his birthday bracha and starts crying. So someone says, hey, why are you crying? So he said, because I learned, or I heard that Hashem showed himself to Avram, and I also want to see Hashem. Why don't I get to see Hashem? And he was crying about it. It bothered him, and it annoyed him. And so the Tzemach Tzedek said, he goes, well, you have to understand, Avraham Avinu was 99 years old. He'd worked himself for 9 years, and after all that, he'd give himself a bris. He said, I need it. Like I'm not good enough. I still have to keep on working. He deserves that Hashem should show himself to him. And the Rebbe Ashab, he liked it. So basically, we're going to have to discuss. And this is a way to think about it. When we hear a story, you have to ask yourself, well, let me understand this. How did that answer that when a person decides to give himself a bris at 9 years old, satisfy the Rebbe Ashab? How did that work? And also, like, wow, like what can I learn from the fact that the Rebbe Ashab at 4 or 5 years old is crying over the fact that he doesn't get to see Hashem? All these are things we can learn. Now let's see. Base. The fact that this story happened when he was a little child, by mitzvah, before he's by mitzvah, before he even came to the level of education. He wasn't on that level like education. He already can think for himself and really understand things. Simple kid. There's something to learn from that. That's one thing. Then you also have and the fact that the Rebbe Ashab told the story to the Frierdiker Rebbe. And the Frierdiker Rebbe told it over. That should be spread out, that this story should be known. What does that show us? So therefore the story also is relevant to us. This story, the question the Rebbe Ashab and the answer that the Tzemach Tzedek gave is teaches us two things. And this is a beautiful idea. When you hear something, you learn something, and everybody talks about this a lot. Anytime the Frierdiker Rebbe said something, it was public knowledge for all of us to know and to learn, to think about and to connect. And like we said in last week's Sikha, if anyone remembers, that the Rebbe said that the test of Lech Lecha wasn't the first test, and wasn't necessarily the greatest test that I've dealt with. But it's the first test that is told us in the Torah, and the Rebbe said the reason is because this is something we can learn from. And so too, when you learn something in a Sikha, you hear a story from Chassidim or something, it's there because we're meant to learn from this, we're meant to connect with this, we're meant to figure it out. And the Rebbe is saying, the Rebbe is teaching us a derech limud, a way to learn, a way to think. So here we hear a story, see a story from the Rebbe, any of these stories, we can internalize it and listen to it and see what's the message for me. And the Rebbe is going to teach us how to do it in this case. So the Rebbe is saying to us, there's two things we're going to learn from this. The question and the answer. Today we're going to start working on the question. Gimel. The question, the crying of the Rebbe Ashab, that he's crying that Hashem doesn't show himself to him, teaches us that every single Jew, in any situation we find ourselves, whether even when the level of we didn't come to chinuch, like in the story, he's a little kid. He's not in the level of age of education. He's not probably going to yeshiva and learning Talmud and Gemara and Rashi and Tosfos. He's a little kid. He's hearing stories in Cheder. When he comes, that he lacks this, that this level is the person that lacks the knowledge, the real understanding, the real grasping of an idea. Not just by himself, he can't figure it out. He's too young, he can't even receive from anyone else. He's too young to appreciate. When you tell him something, he doesn't get it. He's too young. That's the level of the child we're talking about. And what do we say? It could even be, the Rebbe says, and this is a very famous part. It could even be the person is by age, he's old. But spiritually, spiritually, a person didn't grow up religious, didn't learn anything, doesn't know anything. So spiritually, when it comes to Torah mitzvah, has no clue what's going on. Like the Frierdiker Rebbe says, Shanim Yehudis Einam Nimnois Behesim Leireshim Bepassport. That your age is not what it says in the passport. That's what the Frierdiker Rebbe said. It's a very famous part. You should take this and keep it with you. It's a good part to have. And your age is not what it says in the passport. Meaning, just because your passport says I'm 99 years old, you could be a little kid spiritually. And just because you see a person on the street, and this is, it's you can learn in so many ways. You don't judge people, but the reality is just because a person has a certain age, and it could be even spirit, meaning even a chassid. You look at a person, the chassid, he grew up from. Doesn't mean just because he has a white beard, it doesn't just because they're older, they have many kids, it doesn't mean maturity level or spirituality level, they're on that age. It could be very young, even not in the level of chinuch. Yeah. Yitachen Yehudi Shalafia passport to Adam Zakin. According to the passport, if you look at the passport, he says he's old. But according to the true years, this also the true years. It's not what it says in the passport, not how old I am when I was born. My true years. The ruchnius spiritually, the Torah mitzvahs, and God's fulfilling Torah mitzvahs. Who need tinoik hamasachek mitachas lashulchan. It's like a little child playing under the table. So you look at a person that is a child on the table. And that's what we're saying. A person can be in such a young, he's so young. But nevertheless, even such a child, spiritually speaking, not just physically speaking, but even spiritually speaking, such a child, even before they understand anything, which is not mature, they haven't come to the level. A person on the street that never put on tefillin in their lives, or a girl that never knew anything about Torah mitzvahs, or lighting Shabbos or anything, and you meet them and you talk to them, you frame with them, they can come in and draw and ask. They can get to the point of even crying. That crying is coming from a level above, very high, above even the intellect, because the intellect can't understand. Intellect can't grasp this. The crying comes because it's like above. It's too much of the. It's above the mind. The mind can't grasp it, and so we can't handle it, and we cry. Even a person on such a level still can cry himself to us. So this is the first level that we're talking about. That a person, and the Rebbe is saying a very beautiful part. He's saying, if we learn from the story that the fact that the little kid, the Rebbe Rashab, which is his below chinuch, had this complaint and had this desire, he's saying it's a lesson for all of us. That we can be, even on the lowest of levels, even in the lowest levels, there's no reason why we can't cry about wanting to see God. And we should. And he's not saying that you have to be on that low level. He's saying even if you're on that low level, meaning all of us. And there's no excuse. No one can say, but I'm not, I don't know anything. I'm not. And the point is, what we're saying is we're meant to learn and we're meant to connect with Hashem and to think about Hashem and in a way that it's so meaningful that it brings us to tears. And that's what we're saying. And a way to understand, we're going to stop it here. Tomorrow we're going to the next level, but a way to understand and think about this is the first of all saying when we learn something and when we daven and when we do Jewish things, it should be emotional. People think Chabad means intellect. Chabad means that intellect should affect the emotions. We should have emotions. We should be very emotional. But the emotion is coming from just random things, which should come with orderly, with understanding something, then bring to emotion. And just like in the example, you ever watched a movie, Lavdil, or read a book, or you experienced something that made you emotional, or you listen to a piece of music, or you sing a song that connects with you and touches you. That emotion we should feel, we should be able to tap into, and we could feel that all the time. When we're davening, when we're learning, doing Jewish things, not in a negative emotion. Just to be clear, it's all like, but like in that I'm emotionally connected. I feel emotional, just like a husband and wife or a kid. The nachas you get when your kid does something, and you feel that good feeling, that emotion. So too, we are able, and that's what they were saying, we are able to request to have that feeling to the extent we want to see God. And we don't get to see God. And that's what we're trying to build. That's what we're trying to save here. And that's the first lesson we learned from the story. And tomorrow we'll finish up that lesson and go to the second lesson. Thank you very much for joining, and have a great